Hey Twilights, welcome back to Twilight Corner. So in today's video, we are going to be starting with chapter number 4, that is A Truly Beautiful Mind for class ninth and CERT English. So let's start, but before we start, make sure to like this video, subscribe and also share this video with your friends. Alright, so let's start without any further delay. Before you read, who do you think of when you hear the word genius? Who is a genius? What qualities do you think a genius has? Now, when you hear the word genius, which person comes to your mind? For me, it's Albert Einstein because he was a great genius, right? And what qualities does a genius have? For me, I think the geniuses are pretty intelligent and they have genuine respect for everyone, and that should be something that should be common, right? Genuine respect is pretty common. So yeah, that would be something that the common qualities that a genius would have for me. But what about you? Let me know in the comment section below. Now let's continue. Okay, we had a small little glitch. Let me just scroll up. Yeah, we shall now read about a young German civil servant who took the world by storm about 100 years ago. So, in this chapter, we are going to be learning about a young civil German servant which was there, and he actually brought the world into a storm, meaning that he did something really great 100 years ago. In the summer of 1905, the 26-year-old published in quick succession four groundbreaking newspapers about light, the motion of particles, the electrodynamics of moving bodies, and energy. So, in the year 1905, there was this 26-year-old who had published something that was giving him a great groundbreaking success. So, which was, let's see what he wrote about. So it was actually about light, the motion of particles, and then the electrodynamics of moving bodies, energy, etc. So this was included in the newspapers and it actually brought him a lot of success. So let's see more about it. Okay, yeah. His work took up only a few pages in scientific journals but changed forever our understanding of space, time, and the entire cosmos, and transformed the name Einstein into a synonym for genius. So this electrodynamics, light, and the motion of particles, and then the cosmos, this whole thing was actually what do you call it, it was included in a scientific journal and it was only written in a few pages, but then this actually changed our whole understanding for space, science, and whatever that is there, and the whole entire cosmos itself and time including that. So from that, which led to the name Einstein, which is now considered as a synonym for genius. So we are learning about Sir Albert Einstein in this. 50 years later, after his death, Albert Einstein is still a genius and he still reigns as a genius. Now let's move on with the first paragraph. Albert Einstein was born on the 14th of March 1879 in the German city of Ulm, without any indication that he was destined for greatness. On the contrary, his mother thought that Albert was a freak. To her, his head seemed much too be large. Okay, so what happened was that Albert Einstein, he was born on the 14th of March 1879 in the German city which is named as Ulm here, and without any indication, who knew that he was destined for greatness and he would actually become a really good great scientist. So who knew that? And on the contrary, like on the other hand, his mother actually thought that Albert was a freak. Now, what do you mean by freak here? Freak meaning that it's kind of like a disapproving word for someone you don't talk about, and then it's kind of like the unusual way. Let's read it. A word used for disapproving to talk about a person who is unusual and doesn't behave or look or think like others. So basically, we say kind of like a psychopath or something like that. Okay, so that's the meaning of freak. So Albert's mother thought that he was a freak, and to her that Albert's like forehead was too large. That's what his mother thought. Now, at the age of 2.5, Einstein still wasn't talking. So, when he turned 2.5, he wasn't still talking. And after that, when he actually learned how to speak, he actually uttered everything twice. And when he would say something, he would say twice. Like, for example, he's speaking his name. So, over here, he's just speaking this two times. So, that's what is happening here. Einstein did not know what to do with other children, and his playmates called him rather boring. So the youngster played by himself. Okay. So over here, Einstein did not know what to do with other children. Everyone was just, teasing him, and their playmates also would tell him that he was a very, boring person. So they would call him brother boring, and then the poor child would play by himself at the other. Okay. Now we are talking about a mathematician down. Let's read it out once. Okay, so Otto knew G. Bayor, the historian of ancient mathematics, told a story about the boy named Einstein that he characterizes as a legend, but that seems fairly authentic. Now over here, Otto over here is a mathematician, and he told a story about a little boy named Einstein who characterizes or who is known as a legend and who seems to be really authentic, right? As he was a talk later, he was a late talker, his parents were worried. So, maybe this is kind of like conspiced with, or related with Einstein, but who knows? So that Einstein talked a little late, right? So his parents were pretty worried about him. At last, at the supper table one night, he broke his silence to say the soup was too hot. So when they were having dinner, right? So this is a story that Otto is telling, that one night that this kid Einstein, he actually broke the silence and said that this soup is actually really hot. And greatly relieved, his parents asked why he had never said a word before. So they asked, like, that now he said a full sentence, why he would never talk. So Albert replied, because up to now everything was in order, so everything was in place, so I didn't really have to talk much. So this is actually something related to Albert Einstein. Now let's continue. Now, he especially loved mechanical toys. Looking at his newborn sister Maja, he said to have said, "Fine, but where are her wheels?" So, actually, he was really fascinated by mechanical toys. So, when his newborn sister named Maja was born, he said that, "Where are her wheels?" Okay, that's quite interesting and funny too. A headmaster once told his father that what Einstein has chose as a profession wouldn't matter because he'll never make a success at anything. So over here, the headmaster is actually downgrading Albert and telling his father that whatever profession he has chosen, Albert, right? He wouldn't make any success out of it because there's no point. It wouldn't matter at any case. That's what he has told. Einstein began learning to play the violin at the age of 6 because his mother wanted him to. So he started learning how to play the violin at the age when he was 6 years old because his mother wanted him to learn the violin. Then he later became a gifted amateur violinist, maintaining the skill throughout his life. So he actually became an amateur violinist, and he was actually maintaining this whole skill throughout his life for ages. So what do you mean by amateur here? Doing something for personal enjoyment rather than as a profession, kind of like an hobby. So let's continue. But Albert Einstein was not huh, but Albert Einstein was not a bad pupil. So he is not really a bad pupil. He went to a high school in Munich, where Einstein's family had moved when he was 15 months old and scored good marks in almost every subject. Einstein hated school's regimentation and often clashed with his teachers. So what happened was Albert had no, was actually not a bad pupil, and then his family had moved to Munich. So Munich is a city, right? And I think so. It's a city. I'm not sure. Yeah. So it is a city where Einstein's family had moved when he was 15 months old itself, and then Einstein used to score good marks in every single subject, but had actually hated the whole regimentation of the whole school because he just found it boring, and regimentation meaning that order or discipline taken to the extreme. It was really just too many rules to follow, and then he would actually get into trouble with his teachers mostly, and he would clash with them. At the age of 15, Einstein felt so stifled stifled. Now what do you mean by stifled here? So stifled meaning that it was kind of like suffocated. It was very hard for him to breathe and stuff like that. So he left the school for good and he would never come back. Now let's move on. The previous year, Albert's parents had moved to Milan. So now they had moved to Milan and left their son with their relatives. Now he is living with his relatives. After prolonged discussion, Einstein got his wish to continue his education in German speaking Switzerland in his city, which was more liberal than Munich. Now, when we talk about Albert, so he was living with his relatives, but then after a lot of prolonged wait, he actually convinced his parents or relatives whatsoever to, just continue his education in the German speaking city in Switzerland. It's kind of like a city and which is more liberal than Munich. So he was continuing his studies in Switzerland now. So, Einstein was highly gifted in mathematics and interested in physics, and after finishing school, he decided to study at the university in Zurich. But he decided, but science wasn't the only thing that appealed to the dashing young man with the Wallace mustache. Okay, so when we talk about Einstein right here, we talk about mathematics and physics. So he was really interested in mathematics and physics and in science. The whole thing comes in science. And after finishing his school, he actually wanted to study at the University of Zurich. And then after studying that, he was not the only thing that he wasn't just appealed to science. There were many other things that appealed to him as well, to the young dashing man with the Wallace mustache. So over here, this mustache right over here from what do you call it, Albert, is just indicated here. Now, Einstein, in the age of 21 in 1900, and Einstein in 1955, as we remember him now before he died. Okay, let's continue. Okay, so let's continue. He also felt a special interest in a fellow student, Milevia Marik. So over here, Einstein actually had some interest in a girl named Milevia Marik, and he found that she was pretty clever, and he associated her as a name for a clever creature. This young Serb had come to Switzerland because the university in Zurich was one of the few in Europe where women could actually get their degree. So Einstein had actually, no, this little young Serb which was there, right? She came to Switzerland because she had to study, right? And she could get the universities degree, because this university in Zurich, right, which was in Switzerland, it was one of the only universities in Europe where women could actually get their college degrees. So she came to that. Now Einstein saw her in an alley in Philistines. So when Einstein was actually, how did he meet her actually? So he met her in a alley, and they were associated as a friend or an associate in the university. But what happened was, her family was from the Philistines. It's no, her family wasn't from the Philistines, but Albert's family did not approve of this, that they would actually become something like, they did not approve of the couple, so that was the case. So what happened was, those people in his family at the university were from the odds. So basically, his family was kind of like from the constantly at the odds, like, no, this cannot be there. So the couple fell in love. Letters survive in which they try to put their affection into words, mixing science with tenderness, wrote Einstein. How happy and proud I shall be when we both have brought our work on relativity to a victorious conclusion. So over here, they would actually write love letters to each other and show their affection for each other, and they would write something. They would kind of like mix the science and the whole tenderness which they would be having, and they would write a letter. And then Einstein actually wrote that, that he would be really happy and proud that if they would work together and they would bring out a work for relativity to a victorious conclusion. Okay. Okay. Now in the 1900s, at the age of 21, Einstein was a university graduate and unemployed. So at the age of 21, he actually had graduated, but he was still unemployed, meaning that he didn't have a job. He worked as a teaching assistant, gave private lessons, and finally secured a job in 1902 as a technical expert in the patent office in Bern. So after that, he actually gave private lessons as a teaching assistant, and then he finally secured a job as a technical expert in the city of Bern as a patent office. Sorry, he actually secured a job as a technical expert. So his profession was a technical expert in the patent office of Bern, and in the year 1902. While he was supposed to be accessing other people's invitations, Einstein was actually developing his own ideas in secret. So even though he was supposed to be reviewing other people's invites, though he was actually working on his own ideas in secret. He he is said to have jokingly called his desk drawer at work the barrows of theoretical physics. So that there was this rumor, not rumor actually, people would actually that they would actually tell that there was this desk drawer right at the Bourne office that he was working. People would actually jokingly was just telling that desk drawer as the barrow of theoretical physics. He would actually make up his own inventions in that whole desk. So there was this drawer, so that was actually called as the barrio of theoretical physics that people had named. One of the famous papers of 1905 was Einstein's special theory of relativity, according to which time and distance are not absolute. Indeed, two perfectly accurate clocks will not continue to show the time if they come together again after a journey. If one of them has been moving very fast relative to the other. From this followed the world's most famous formula, which describes the relationship between mass and energy. Now, in 1905, one of the famous science, what do you call it, yeah, science magazine, something like that came out, which had also the special theory of relativity, which was included in that whole science magazine. So according to which this relativity ka topic is, which is explaining that, when we talk about distance and time, they're not actually properly absolute. So what happens is that over here, okay, this is not a science class, so I'll just tell you in quick short that over here time and, okay, yeah, time and distance are not absolute, right? And indeed, these two perfectly accurate clocks will not actually continue to show the whole same time, right? They would work in a different manner. And if they would come together after a journey, and if one of them was moving fast, that is something known as, relativity. One is relative to the other. So this actually showed the whole thing, and this derived the whole new formula, the famous formula, which is the relationship for mass and energy, which is energy is equal to mc square. Mc square meaning that mass, and this c meaning that, the speed of vacuum, or speed of light in a vacuum, which is 3 into 10 ka power 8. So yeah, so this is what is given here in mathematical equations. 10 stands, E stands for the energy, and M stands for mass, and C for the speed of light in a vacuum about 3 into 10 के power में 8 kilometers per second. Now over here he has tried making the concept of relativity a little easier to understand. So when you sit with a nice girl for 2 hours, it seems like 2 minutes. So when you sit next to a nice girl for 2 minutes, 2 hours, it feels like you have just sat or start talking to her for just 2 minutes. And when you sit on a hot stove for 2 minutes, it feels like you have been sitting there for 2 hours. That is relativity. So this is what is explained by Albert Einstein. Alrighty, let's continue. While Einstein was solving the most difficult problems in physics, his private life was unraveling. Albert Albert had to marry Milivia right after finishing his studies. So what happened was that, when he was solved well when Albert was solving the most difficult, unprominent physics key questions, his private life was unraveling, and he wanted to marry Milivia, right? Who he actually had fell into love. He wanted to marry her after completing his studies. So, but his mother was against it, and she disapproved of it. She thought Malivia, who was 3 years older than her son, was too old for him. She thought that there was a age difference, and she was too old for him. And then she was also bothered by Milivia's intelligence, that, she's too intelligent and kind of like that. So she's also like a bookworm like you, right? So his mother said Einstein put the wedding off, so he called off the wedding after this. Now the pair finally decided to get married in the January 1903, and had two sons. So after that they had two sons, but after a few years the marriage actually faltered, right? It wasn't going well and became weak. So, but Melivia, meanwhile, was losing her intellectual ambition and becoming an unhappy housewife. So now Melivia was actually becoming unhappy, and she was, just losing all of her intellectual जो भी ambition था. She's just becoming unhappy and just kind of like a weak housewife, something like that, which is given here. After years of constant fighting, the couple finally decided to get divorced in 1990. So they finally got divorced, and then Einstein finally decided to move on and marry his cousin Elsa in the same year of 1990, once after they got divorced. Okay, so Einstein's new personal chapter coincided with his rise of world fame. So what happened was that when we talk about Einstein, there was this new chapter in his life where his life actually brings him to a whole rise of world fame, and he just coincides, kind of like he just comes closer to world fame. So that is the meaning of coincided, sorry. Now in 1950, so in 1950, he had published his general theory of relativity, which provided a new interpretation of gravity. An eclipse of the sun in 1990 brought proof that it was accurate, and Einstein was correctly calculated in an advanced the extent to which the light from fixed stars would be deflected through sun's gravitational field. Now there's this whole science ka theory in which he has given a general theory for relativity jo diya tha in 1950, and after that he has also provided an interpretation or a glimpse of gravity as well. So when we talk about an eclipse in the sun, right, in 1990, he also brought proof that it was pretty accurate. And when he calculated the whole calculations and stuff like that, he actually found out that the light came from the fixed stars and would be actually deflected from sun's gravitational field. So the newspapers proclaimed that he was a scientific revolution. So his work, which was published after that, it was actually known as the scientific revolution. Einstein received a Nobel Prize for Physics in 1921. Then he got a Nobel Prize for his work for physics in 1921, and then he was showered with honors and invitations from all over the world, and that's how his fame came, and lauded by the press. Okay. When the Nazis came into the power in Germany in 1933, so when Nazi Germany came into power in the year 1933, Einstein emigrated to the new United States. So he immigrated to the USA, United States of America. And then 5 years later, the discovery of nuclear fission in Berlin had American physics. Okay, so after that, there was a whole discovery of nuclear fission in Berlin, and where American physicists were uproar, and kind of like they were pretty upset from this discovery of nuclear fission. Now, many of them had fled from fascism, just as Einstein had. So they had gone or migrated to fascism, as Einstein had also done that, and now they were afraid of the Nazis, that they would actually build and use this atomic bomb. So that is the whole case which is going on. It's kind of like the whole politics का खेल चल रहा है. So yeah, okay. There's a lot of glitch. Sorry about that. Now let's continue. So over here, Einstein is actually kind of becoming a politician type person. So let's see. At the urging of a colleague, so there was this whole colleague which was urging, and Einstein wrote a letter to the American president who was named as Franklin D. Roosevelt. Now, on a 2nd of August 1939, in which he warned a single bomb of this type exploded in a port might very well destroy the whole port together and some of the surrounding territory. So when he wrote this letter to Franklin D. Roosevelt, who was the American president, in 2nd of August 19 on 2nd of August 1939, he had actually given a warning letter that this whole type of bomb or nuclear bomb would actually, if it's exploded in a port, will very well destroy the whole port, but also the surrounding territory which is there. His words did not fail, right? And then obviously the bomb had the same effect. So yeah, The Americans developed the atomic bomb and secret project of their own. So after that, they had actually developed a whole bomb of the nuclear bomb, right? Or the atomic bomb, which was there, and then they used it to drop the atomic bombs on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. So, which was this was the next case. So now let's continue. And this actually had led to the destruction, and these bombs were which were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They were dropped in the year 1945 in August. Now Einstein was deeply shaken by the extent of the destruction, so this time he wrote a public missive to the United States. In it he proposed that the formation of the world government. Now, what happened was Einstein, when he heard about this destruction that was in the Japanese cities, right? He was really deeply shaken by that, so he wrote a public missive to the United States. So, missive, it's kind of like a letter or a prolonged official letter, kind of like that, in which he proposed that the formation of the world government should be there. And unlike the letter to Roosevelt, this one was made with no impact. So there was not really no impact which was given to this whole letter, which was this missive, right? No, but over the next decade, Einstein even got more involved into politics, so he was more over like a politician now, kind of. So his popularity to campaign for peace and democracy, so he started for that campaigning, right? And then when Einstein died in 1955 at the age of 76, he was his actually the death was actually celebrated as a visionary world citizen and a scientific genius. So he was actually praised for his whole work, that he was a great citizen and a world visionary and a scientific genius. So that's all with this chapter. We have completed this chapter, and that's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I hope you learned something good from it. So that's all for today. Bye bye. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.